The worst thing I've had happen to swimming is running full speed into a wall,
Oh,
and
no.
you're over that in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's not something terrible.
You're listening to the Water Prairie Chronicles, a podcast that supports parents of children with disabilities by sharing the stories of individuals who have grown up with disabilities and the organizations available to help parents along the way. Stay connected with us by clicking the subscribe button and leave us a comment if you want to join in on the conversation. Today, our guest is Evan Wilkerson. You have not met him yet, but you have met some of his family. In episode 3, we had Olivia on, his older sister, and she talked about growing up with a visual impairment and her adventures at space camp and surfing and zip lining and some other activities. And then in episode 9, his mom Tracy was on, and she talked about what it was like parenting 2 children who are visually impaired, but also her studies as an O&M specialist and what the role of an O&M specialist is. So if you missed those 2, go back and listen to episode 3 and 9. But today we're focusing on Evan because Evan has a very different story, and I think you'll be interested in what he has to share. So Evan, would you like to introduce yourself for us?
Hey, so I'm Evan. I'm 15. I'm going into 10th grade this summer. I've got an eye condition called Leber's congenital amaurosis. It affects the retina of my eye in some kind of odd ways. And then I have no color vision, no central vision, and then I also have nystagmus, which is the involuntary movement of the eye. Um, and then I also just enjoy reading, and I enjoy swimming a lot, and also playing games. However, I can make those accessible, or if I can make those accessible by coding my way around stuff. And then I also enjoy coding. I code in Python and HTML. That's pretty much me.
So now we talked to Olivia about schooling. You're at an online school, correct?
Yes, I am.
So you're talking about the games. Are you referring to online games or board games or what types of games?
Online computer games, if I can make them accessible.
And what is your current favorite right now?
Oh, that's really hard. I would say that it's probably Survive the Wild. It's a audio game meant for the visually impaired.
Oh,
So it's very accessible, screen reader friendly, all that kind of good stuff that makes it work for someone who can't see the screen.
so is it giving you like descriptive sections as well?
No, so the only thing you need screen reader accessibility for is the menu and stats, and then everything else is described in audio.
Okay, so that I know they're getting better at having that type of options out there, but I think there's still a long way to go with a lot of things.
Yes, there is.
So yeah, so there are some challenges whenever you're visually impaired trying to get everything together. But I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing about what is starting to happen now. Today, our main topic that we're talking to Evan about is swimming. He had mentioned that was one of his hobbies, but he's pretty modest with it. So, Evan, I wanted to find out, how old were you when you first learned how to swim?
I started taking swim lessons when, oh gosh, that was forever ago. Probably about 3 or 4. We just did them through the YMCA for a couple of years, but then they, just because of my visual impairment, they kept me in the same lesson for about 2 or 3 years, and I was just like, no, this is not gonna work because I'm not learning anything. I'm not getting better. Um, so I probably stayed with the Y until I was about maybe 5 or 6.
So, at that point, you said you weren't getting better. Were you not learning the strokes? Were you just working on floating still? What?
It was still very basic, like the whole chicken, airplane, soldier for backstroke, and very basic freestyle.
Okay.
And it was, still very short distances.
From that, so where did you go from there then to learn more about the actual strokes and to get your stamina up?
So after that, I really stopped swimming for a bit, and then we went to Granite Falls Swim and Athletic Club. It was it was really what I needed for my swimming career at the time. I got into better lessons. I was learning strokes. I was doing up to 50 yards at a time. After I'd been in lessons with just swim lessons for about a year or so, I joined the swim team, which it wasn't a big difference because when you put a bunch of 7-year-olds in a pool together and they barely know how to swim,
Right.
you're not going to get too much.
And strokes are still developing at that age.
Yes.
I was going to ask how old you were. So you took a little bit of time off, but it sounds like it wasn't much time really if you were 7 at the time.
It was probably about 3 months.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So just a short time. And I think that happens a lot where kids start with just a regular swim lesson where the focus is on breathing and water safety more than anything else. But then
Right.
you need a little bit more if you want to develop the strokes and to actually be able to use those strokes in a more competitive way. So did you
Right.
start competing right away, or did you just swim with the swim team to practice with them?
No, I never started competing until it was so I would have been about 9 at the time. It was in 2016. We'd gone to see the Paralympic trials for the Paralympic Games in Rio.
Oh, okay.
And that was just in Charlotte. So we just took a weekend and we were going to just Great Wolf Lodge down there, but we took a bit of time and went to see those.
What do you remember about that as far as what changed with you wanting to actually compete?
I had never really seen another visually impaired person swim other than my sister. And, we were both at very similar levels at the time.
Mhm.
But I saw, other visually impaired people swimming competitively there, swimming well, making it to these world type swim meets. And it was just something that I really wanted to do. And I never really realized that before. But once I saw it, I was like, this is really neat. I never knew I could do this. I want to try to get there.
Now, so you were still swimming with your local group at that point,
Yes.
and then now I know I've heard some of the modifications that you've done, but I don't fully understand everything that you've done. Being visually impaired at the level that you are, what is the hardest thing about swimming? Like, are you able to see the line at the bottom of the pool? Can you see where the wall is to know what your distance is?
So I can see the line at the bottom of the pool if it's a fairly well lit pool and it's under about 10 feet in depth.
Okay.
If it's really deep, I can't, and I have to kind of stay near the lane line where I can feel it with my hand as I'm stroking so that I know that I'm not, drifting all over the lane and causing harm to my times.
Is
But
that slowing
with
you down though if you do that?
no, so I only do a very light touch, and
Okay.
so it doesn't disrupt my stroke.
Okay, because I would think that if you're at first it probably may have
Right,
when
it
you're
did at
learning how to do that.
first. And then with the wall, I have at competitions, I have most time it's my parents. They have these about 12-foot long poles, and each one has a pool noodle on the end just for cushioning. And when I'm 2 strokes out from the wall, they will hit me in the head with those. And so I know, all right, I got 2 strokes, and then I have to turn.
Right.
On certain strokes, we found that it's beneficial to do it 1 stroke on a breaststroke and butterfly, just because of the way that stroke is done, and it was getting way too far out from the wall to be effective.
Right. Well, so on backstroke, then it's about the same distance as the lane. I mean, the flags would be
Yes,
for
it's
someone else.
about probably 2 or 3 feet in from the flags.
Okay. Okay. And are there any limitations on doing something like that during a competition? Has there ever been a problem with that?
No, so it's recognized by the USA Swimming and the Olympic and Paralympic committees that this is a reasonable adaptation to the sport and it's not causing the swimmer any advantage or disadvantage.
Okay, so whether you're swimming against someone else who's visually impaired or any type of disability or with a typical swimmer, you're legal either way
Right.
on that. Okay. And then all right, so when you're competing, you're making that. In your practice, have you done any modifications for that?
Yes. So in practice, we started out doing tapping when we were just at Granite Falls, but then it's very tiring to stand on an pool deck 5 days a week for an hour and just hit someone on the head.
Well, I'm thinking the
So
weight of a 12-foot pole. No matter
yeah,
how small it is, it still has weight to it.
right. And so we went my first Paralympic meet. It was in October, and we found that they used sprayers. And so it's just like a regular garden hose with a regular sprayer attachment on the end, and you put that on the wall. If you're in the end lane, you put it on the wall where it's spraying across the lane 2 strokes out. So that's just a substitute for the tapping rather than, a tapper standing there. You just have to unreel that hose and put it out and put something on top of it to keep it from jumping around, and you're set.
So is it hard to feel the water though whenever you're for the spray?
No, no. A lot of the times the water that's coming out is going to be colder or warmer than the
True.
pool water. And so it's also got a lot of pressure behind it. So you can usually feel it.
Okay. Well, that's what I was thinking because it's different. And then for practice you're doing that, but in the competition you're doing the tap.
Right.
Okay. So because I would think that might get a little confusing too, but once you've been through it enough times, as long as it's the same distance, I guess it would be the same type
Right.
of
It
signal.
takes it takes a little getting used to, but after a couple weeks it's just something normal, and it's something that you're used to, and it doesn't bother you, and it's actually helping you.
And do you swim in any relays?
Yes. So I've swam in a couple. A lot of the times, it's just practice relays, just you know. But in swim meets, I have swam in a few relays. It's not super common, but yes, I have.
And does someone tap you to know when the tag has happened?
So how that works is so I'm up on the block in relay dive position,
Right.
and someone is holding my ankle. And so when I need to go, they release my ankle, and that's my cue. All right, I
Okay.
need to go.
Okay. I've seen that before, but I had not realized they were just releasing the ankle, and maybe it's different from swimmer to swimmer what it is they need. But in that case, I mean you're looking at just fractions of seconds difference sometimes between first and second place.
Right.
So trying to get in there. And then so you talked about the first team that you were swimming with. What team do you swim with now, and do you swim with more than one team?
I currently swim for New Wave Swim Team. I needed something more competitive than Granite Falls, because Granite Falls, it was more of just a neighborhood swim team. New
Okay.
Wave is, it's much more competitive. Uh, my current coach was actually trying to qualify for the Olympics back in
Wow.
2019,
So
before COVID.
yeah, that actually is pretty impressive though to have someone that was swimming at that level
Right.
to be coaching you.
It's very nice because, he knows what we need to be doing more than someone who hasn't been at that level.
Right. Right. I mean, I was a water safety instructor. I could teach you all the strokes, but I'm not going to be able to teach you the competitive side of it.
Right.
So there is a difference between just getting your strokes perfected, than, and then trying to shave off seconds, minutes, whatever you can do. Now, I noticed this year that your times improved quite dramatically. I haven't been keeping up a whole lot, but when I was tracking for a little bit, it seemed like you were shaving off time week after week for a while there. Are you where you feel like you should be right now?
So a month ago, I would have said yes, but since we just switched from going, so our normal practice is 25 yards, but in the summer we go to 50 meters, which is what the rest of the world uses. So that's what I'll be swimming, if I make it to the Paralympics.
Okay.
So since we just made that jump, it doesn't sound like a lot. It just sounds like a longer pool, but each 50 meters is 5 yards longer than 50 yards. So
Right.
that it changes how you should do your strokes. It changes your race strategy. And then it just takes a lot of getting used to.
What is the longest distance that you have swum? Are you doing any of the longer freestyle or?
The longest I have done is the 500-yard free.
I was wondering if you had done that one.
Yes, I've done that one. My coach wants me to do the mile, but I'm kind of like, do I want to do that?
Are you more of a sprinter or a
Yes,
stamina?
I am a sprinter.
Okay, yeah, I would say because every athlete has a build for either sprinting or stamina. It's rare that you have one that excels in both
Right.
with it. So yeah, I was curious about that. The to me, I think this the sprinting would be the easier one because you get the blast, you've got it all out there. But the 500, I don't know that I would have enjoyed that one either. So with some of the swimming that you've done, where all have you traveled so far for meets?
So I've gone to Augusta, Georgia. That was my first Paralympic meet. A lot of the regular meets I've done is in just here in North Carolina. And then I've also gone to Colorado Springs for one meet, and then I'm going to Florida later this year for a meet.
Wow. So the Colorado and the Florida, what types of meets are those?
So Colorado was a national meet, so it was people from all over the country and Canada. And I think there was a couple from Mexico.
Okay.
And then it was a fairly competitive meet, but it wasn't, super competitive. And then in Florida, it's a regular meet for it's not a Paralympic meet. So
Okay.
I'll be competing against you know, people who I usually swim with, like typical swimmers.
Right.
I'll be competing in that type of competition.
Do you see a big difference in the times between the Paralympic times and the typical meet?
Um, Not really. Like a typical swimmer is a couple seconds faster than me usually, but other than that, there's not really much difference.
That's what I was going to ask how competitive are you against the typical because a typical swimmer, you're 15, you've got another 15-year-old, same body build, same experience and everything. They're not having to go through the process of keeping track in their lane, being tapped in and all that. That's got to make a little bit of a difference because it's not an even
Yes,
playing field.
right. It usually does make a slight difference.
Yeah, so it'd be interested with just a straight sprint with I don't know a cushion I guess at the end, so you're not having to think about where the wall is, or just measuring it at the 25 of a 50, to
Right.
see where are you at that point. I'm sure you're probably out ahead of them at that point. So thinking about this, so what are your goals for the future? What are your plans?
So currently, I'm working on getting the emerging times, which is a time I need to be able to. It gives psych help as well as nutritional help. Just
Okay.
stuff, just advice. I need to drop 0.99 seconds in my 100-meter backstroke to make that time.
Wow, it's
And
not much.
then, yeah, and then in the next couple years, I'm going to start working on getting the qualifying times for the Paralympics. And then my ultimate goal is to make Paralympics 2024.
Okay, so that's not very far away.
No, it's not.
So, but you're going to have more growth between now and then for height, so that gives you a better reach with it,
Right.
and even just at your age now, as more muscle development comes through too, that's going to give you a spurt as well. It's
Right.
you're at an age where it's interesting because the swimming really develops quickly as you're hitting those growth spurts.
Yes, it does.
So just keeping up with that, keeping your stretching going while you're getting into those different spurts, so that your muscles are strong and not weakening on that.
Right.
All right. So if a parent that's listening has a child that's interested in swimming, and either they haven't started swimming yet or they're just beginning to, and they're thinking maybe about some competitive swimming, what advice would you give to that parent of a young child now?
I would say, just be supportive and, do the stuff that your child needs to succeed and push them, but don't be overly, don't make them feel like they have to do it. And then also just, be aware of the sprayer and the tapping options if they need that.
And then for a child who's interested in swimming, what advice would you give to them?
Uh, Listen to your coaches. Your coaches know what you need to be doing. If it's something with your disability and it's more vision related, then try to find an answer. But your coaches are going to know what you need. They know the strokes. They know um, the strategies you need to be using, and then a lot of the times they just have great ideas. And then also just jump in, play around with it, make sure you're thinking about what you're doing, think about your goals, and then keep that in your mind while you're swimming, as well as the advice you get from your coaches. And then don't be afraid of it. The worst thing I've had happen to swimming is running full speed into a wall,
Oh,
and
no.
you're over that in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's not something terrible.
Have you found your teammates are supportive?
Yes. It really depends on the team though. My former team was not super supportive because it wasn't as competitive, but my current team that I'm on now is, it's very supportive. We all support each other. It's an all or nothing thing.
I find swimming is a sport where you usually find that with the team, where it's individual, but it's not because the team's getting points together. They're trying to encourage each other to get stronger. Everyone wants to be out front, of course, but
Right.
you're not leaving each other behind. You're still encouraging those who may be a slower swimmer, but you want to see them improve.
Right.
And then the other question I was wondering too, more for the parents if they're young children, but is there somewhere they can go to find out what those rules are that, like which modifications are allowed and not allowed? Is there like a national website they could go to?
You can probably find that on the Paralympic website, or just ask around. Ask if you know someone, ask them. If you don't, Google is going to be your best friend for that.
Okay. Okay, great. Well,
The
this is
USA
some.
Swimming website may also be good.
I
I
was
just
thinking
thought of
maybe
that.
we can link to that too, just in case they have some information. I think this has been great information. So I'm hoping that some of our listeners that haven't thought about swimming for their child will have a little more confidence knowing that this is an option for them and a great, even if it's just for fun and exercise. You've got summer swim teams. You have more relaxed type of swim groups, and then you have if you have a child who's really competitive and wants to get out there, this is a great sport for them to get into. So Evan, we always have what we call the speed round. It's 10 short questions, and everyone is asked the same questions. And after our 25th, we're going to actually put a chart up of where all the answers are so we can kind of see how many answered different ones. And the first three questions are open ended. It's just a question of favorites and things like that. Just answer whatever comes to mind. And then the seven after that are either or. So you'll get a choice of two things and you choose which one. Or you could say both or neither, depending on what you want to say. So
Okay.
there's kind of the sky's the limit on these. So are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So the first question: what's your favorite color?
Orange.
And what was the last book that you read?
Last book. Oh my gosh.
You said you like to read. Come on.
I do like to read. That would be Dauntless by Jack Campbell.
Okay, excellent. What's your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
And these are the either or. So cake or ice cream,
Cake.
Batman or Superman,
Superman.
ocean or mountains,
Ocean.
winter or summer,
Winter.
watch a movie or read a book.
Oh, this one's hard. Both.
Both, okay. Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings.
Oh my gosh, these are hard. I would say Lord of the Rings.
Okay, and Twitter or Instagram.
Instagram.
Instagram. Okay. So they aren't hard, but they're kind of interesting to see how different ages and male and female answer the questions. So I think it'll be interesting to see what the overview is when I post that. All right. So then the final thing that I usually ask is how we can contact you. And Evan and I talked about this ahead of time. And anyone that has questions, if they want to ask him more about his swimming or some of the things that he's done through the years at different ages, you can send him a note via the info@waterprairie.com, and we'll make sure that he gets that. So just send it to us through that. We'll put a link in the notes for the show so you can see that as well. So Evan, thank you for taking the time to share this with us today. I think it's really going to be a good thing for parents that are listening.
You're welcome. I hope it'll be useful to someone out there.
Thank you. Well, keep us posted on how you're doing in these different competitions. We can post some updates from here and there too, and maybe in 24 we can do an interview with you as the official Olympian at that point.
All right, I will do that.
You've been listening to the Water Prairie Chronicles. Any resources mentioned during this episode will be posted in the description. If you're interested in joining us as a guest, contact us through the links in the description below. Be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. We appreciate your support as we build this resource. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week for a new episode.